Okay, this is a theory screencast. Specifically, we're going to talk about Roland Barthes's Enigma Codes, which is a narrative theory, which, to remind you, narrative is the media terminology for storyline. Okay, so Roland Barthes came up with a series of narrative codes that he felt that storylines would either adhere to or break. The most significant one that you need to know about are what he called Enigma codes. Enigmas are simply just a mystery given with any media text. Usually within a narrative, there will be clues dropped throughout in order to raise that mystery to the attention of the audience member. But very often answers won't be given straight away. They will come eventually, but no clear answers are given early on. The essential aim of this is to keep the audience watching. If there's a question they want answered and the answers aren't forthcoming, but clues are constantly being dropped, it entices them, it creates interest, and it will keep them coming back for more. He also pointed out, though, that if Enigma remains unanswered, even by the end of the narrative, the audience will become frustrated. This has been seen in several TV shows over the years. A good example of which is Doctor Who, which recently has been criticised for sometimes enigmas being raised in episodes and then never fully resolved, leaving the audience feeling frustrated that they never got the answers that they needed. So it's very important to know that while Enigma codes are powerful tools for keeping your audience coming back for more, you've got to come up with a satisfying conclusion to that mystery, or else you may lose audience in the process. An example, a very obvious example of this is what's known as cliffhanger endings. Most of you will have probably watched Infinity Wars, which was obviously the most recent episode of the Avengers series of films. That movie ended with a rather large cliffhanger, which affected a huge quantity of the heroes. I'm going to try and avoid spoilers as carefully as I can. But essentially, the very backbone of the ending was an enigma as to what is going to happen in the next film. That, as a result, means that the viewing figures for the next movie are probably going to be even higher than the first, because word of mouth about that enigma will have driven even further excitement about the next installment. So enigma in cliffhangers is a very, very useful and very common tool in narrative, particularly in series of TV shows and films such as The Avengers. Another common example is things such as product trailers and teasers. So another very big recent example was the trailer for, or actually it was probably more of a teaser, being a minute and a half long, of the latest live action CGI medley of The Lion King, which is a remake of the old 1990s cartoon by Disney. It's very, the screenshot I've used here is very deliberate. It's very, and also because of the deliberacy in the trailer, it was very deliberate of the director of the trailer to insert right at the end, after the date was given, the title, and all of the big reveals on the release date, they showed a very brief clip of Simba as an adult. This then raises the enigma. Before this point, the trailer had showed Simba as a cub, but the audience will obviously want to know more about what happens to this character or what happens to him through the journey from youth to adulthood, which will drive interest in future trailers, which will probably be riddled with enigmas as well, which will then drive the audience to the cinema to watch it. There are obviously a large number of shows and products that are based around enigmas as well. Sherlock is the example I'm going to use here, just simply because every episode is a what would be referred to as a whodunit. There is often a crime or an enigma based around something, or that the enigma and the crime being who did it. And the whole point of each episode, or in some cases double build episodes, is for Sherlock and Watson to go look at clues, which are those gradual clues fed to the audience to eventually resolve the enigma through finding out who the person who committed the crime was. So that's really a few examples of how enigmas are used in narrative. There are huge quantities, both in moving image text, which I've talked about a lot here, but also in print-based text as well. The key here is to look for any questions raised by the for the audience, by the media text creator. So how do you use this? Firstly, like I said, you identify the enigma. What is a mystery that the audience want answered? That will get you your basic pass grade if you're able to identify that and you show understanding of what an enigma actually is. To extend beyond this and access the higher grade criteria, you need to understand how the media text creator actually created this enigma. By this, I mean what connotations, what tools of narrative, what tools of production, such as camera, editing, sound, mise en scène, what have they done to create that enigma through the construction of the media text? Is there a particular camera angle? Is there a particular lingering? Has the editor slowed down to linger on a particular object for longer than it previously did to raise the attention of the audience to a particular item or moment or something like that, which will then get them asking questions? I said about editing, how you can linger for just a couple of extra seconds. That's a very powerful tool in many moving image texts, where just slowing down the editing pace for one shot on a particular item will instantly create enigmas for the audience. Looking for those very subtle clues and highlighting them to the examiner is the way you access the higher grades, and explaining how they've used editing, camera, sound, mise en scène, use of color for connotations, etc., and explaining that to the examiner is where the higher grade boundaries lie.